Look at that. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. If you haven't checked out my reel that I posted on Instagram the other day, well, here is the result. And I got this 93 black on black LX hatch all stripped down yesterday. Everything went pretty smooth, except for trying to drop the K-member out of it and trying to get the differential out. I was trying to save those lower control arms. I find myself doing more put back to stock projects these days, so it's always good to have some nice clean original parts. Now, despite this car being absolutely rotted and its torque boxes and the floor and the frame rails, all the parts that came off the car were generally pretty clean. A lot of good black interior stuff, and motor and transmission, everything, as you'll see in this episode, seemed to be in pretty good shape overall. So it's unfortunate you can't save every Fox, and I wish I could, but this one had its donor card and it was happy to donate all of its parts that were usable for a good cause. Now, this episode going to go through and walk you through the car so you guys can see what it looked like when I got it, and well, a couple little clips of how it got to this state. So stay tuned. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the infamous project. And well, behind me, I don't have anything too pretty looking. In fact, I got something pretty, well, ugly looking, and that is 1993 LX hatch, original 5.0 5-speed car, black interior. This thing is rotted, so any comments about trying to save this car are going to be completely ignored and disregarded. Good news is the car actually runs and drives, and I may or may not have just taken it out to validate its driving abilities. I really wanted to make sure that I could go through all the gears in the transmission and no grinding, all that type of stuff, so that I could be aware of, you know, the overall condition of the drivetrain. You can actually see underneath here, that fuel tank is dangling with a strap, barely holding it up. My cousin picked up the car for me, and he had to put that strap on there to keep the tank up, because when he was loading the car on the trailer, the tank actually just fell right down. So amazingly enough, didn't do anything to the fuel lines, and the car actually still starts. You can see it's rotted everywhere. Quarter panels, rocker panels are out of it. The torque boxes are probably some of the worst that many people have probably ever seen. I'll give you guys a sneak peek here. Look at that. So no H-pipe. There's actually a drive shaft safety loop underneath there, and a G-load brace hiding up at the front. So not sure if it had an off-road H-pipe or what, but it does have Flowmaster mufflers, some MagnaFlow exhaust tips. Hatch has been changed. I'm assuming this was probably a Cobra wing that was on the back of this, just by these two marks here and the way that the holes are drilled, because a GT would only be on the two sides. Interior, it's all right. So we actually got LX in the front, so someone either took the tweed that was originally in here, because it's got tweed in the back, and nice back hatch carpet area, so that's all there. Headliner's all peeling down, and this vent's been painted. Console's got way too many holes drilled through it, unfortunately, but got some nice heater controls. Ignition cylinder's busted out of it, so someone lost the keys, I assume, at some point. But got some kick panels, a carpet, door sill plates. Actually came with the door panels, and the door panels were actually in really nice shape, hence why they're not in the car, because don't need them getting destroyed in there. So this motor, or this car, has 275,000 kilometers on it, so that's pushing what, about 170,000 miles or so. And before I strip this car down, because that's what's going to happen. I am going to do compression test on this motor, so that way I know what I have myself into. This car actually starts up real nice, even with no H-pipe and no O2s. Idles, oil pressure looks to be good on the stock gauge, of course. But for, you know, just to be informed and to know what we're working with here, I'm going to go ahead, pull spark plugs out, do a compression test on this one. And wouldn't that be funny if this actually had more consistent compression than the motor that was in tax return. This motor is not going to go into tax return regardless. With these miles, it's going to need to get freshened up unless somebody's got some backyard project and ends up reaching out to me and buys it. But you know, I'll be definitely keeping all the AC components. The rad looks newer, which is nice. Alternator looks new as well. So there's a lot of good little bits and pieces on this car that I'll definitely be hanging on to. You know, got a full T5 conversion and everything else. But anyways, I'm going to get these plugs out, and we'll start doing our compression testing. All right, guys, so all the spark plugs are out. We got our compression tester hooked into cylinder number 1. And just a few things I wanted to point out to you guys before we get started. And that is the frame rails on this car. Now that I've got the air box and the intake piping out of the way, you can see how bad and how swollen that passenger side frame rail is. And down here on the driver's side, very punky as well. Again, car is not worth saving. Clearly somebody's had the intakes off and painted them black, not very well. You can see poor prep work as the paint's just flaking off. Got different bolts in the valve covers, so maybe valve covers have been done, but it still has the factory headers, factory head bolts. So I don't think the heads have ever been off, but you can see the exhaust. The header gaskets have been changed at some point, so it's probably had those done. Valve covers are probably done. The intake gaskets, I'm sure. Stuff like the thermostat, that all looks like stuff that's been serviced at some point. The injectors look fairly clean. Maybe they were refreshed, I'm not sure. One of the clips is broken off this guy, so clearly the harness has been off before. But, you know, normal maintenance items on your 5.0 that's, you know, 30 years old, pretty near, and with a whole bunch of miles. So again, compression tester tool is hooked up here. I have disconnected the fuel pump relay, which is actually located here on 93s. So pulled that guy out. So we can hook up the battery now, and we'll be shorting out our starter solenoid. So no more fuel pump sound, which is good. And funny enough, I can't even short it out here, it just clicks. So the solenoid's bad, so you actually gotta short it out across these guys. Not the strongest battery, but what do we got here? Probably about 135. So we'll move on to the next one, see how it does. We got here, that's 130. Okay, that one's our lowest, maybe around 122. That's pretty good. Bang on 131 maybe. All right, I actually just rechecked cylinder number 3 and actually got it up to 125. I felt like I didn't have the compression tool threaded in all the way. It might have been leaking some air by. So yeah, the numbers did come up just a tad. So overall, we've done pretty good on the passenger side. So I'll move over here. See what kind of numbers we'll get. So far we're between 125 and 130 on pretty much everything. So 132-ish maybe. It's pretty much 132 again. 132 seems to be a pretty common number on this motor. And about 125. $130. All right, guys, that concludes our compression test on this 93 parts car. So we have our lowest reading is 125. Our highest reading is 135. We're looking for a 10% variance. Our highest number being 135 would mean we'd have about 13.5 psi of difference, which with 125 being the lowest, it's only 10 psi. So that means that in reality, everything is distributed quite equally as far as the compression goes in this motor, which means, you know, it's had a long, relatively healthy life from everything that we can see here. So I'm going to go ahead, jam the spark plugs back in the holes. I will make sure that it fires up, you know, one last time before I go ahead and strip this thing apart. And there we have it. It's always good if you have an opportunity where your bell housing or any opportunity where your starter is able to be engaged. I highly recommend that you do a compression test on your motor, just so that it can give you an idea, a general idea of what's going on inside, especially if it's in a position where it's not actually running. Maybe the intakes are off, or maybe the valve covers or the fuel system isn't hooked up, something like that. It is a good opportunity to take advantage of testing the compression. If you wanted to go even further, you could do a leak down test. In this case, not going to do that, but happy with the results that we got here. Seems like a pretty solid purchase. I don't normally deal with parts cars, but this one has so many original pieces that are nice, that can be used for any put back to stock project or just random little nuts and bolts. I actually need these rubber stops here for that blue Dutch that got sold, because the carbon fiber hood didn't actually utilize them. So it's just little stuff like that. It's always nice to have something like this around. Lowest is 125, max 135. Yeah. That's how you shut it off.
Oh, that's no key.
Yeah. So there we go, guys. 93 parts car. Starts, runs. It does drive. Little sketchy, but it does. And compression numbers aren't too bad. So at least now I know. Not going to be left in the dark or leaving somebody else in the dark if I put it up for sale. So there you guys have it. It's always important to have a parts car if you're doing even just one project, whether you're doing a swap, whether you're restoring, whether you got 2 projects on the go or more. Parts cars always come in handy. They typically pay themselves off in the end. As mentioned earlier, I don't always like to get into the part out game. And, you know, some of these parts I probably will sell off just because I can't store everything. You know, space is money. So some things will get sold off, but other things are just really nice to have around. So this actually isn't the only car. We can go inside. I can give you a sneak peek of another one I picked up. So here's some of the parts that we got off the parts car. You can see a big pile of black interior in here. You know, even that carpet is in really good shape and is going to clean up well. You know, got our airbag steering column. I got some Flowmaster 2-chamber mufflers, old school style. Some really nice MagnaFlow tips that are in really good shape. You know, the actual exhaust welding job wasn't that great, but can definitely cut off those bad sections. And then over here, here's our drivetrain. So 5-speed T5 and our stock motor, all of the wiring harness. You know, having some wiring harnesses around is a benefit as well. For years like 93, where some of the connectors are different in a different place, like the fuel pump relay is actually in the engine bay. You know, managed to score a nice new clutch cable. Got the pedal assembly out of the car that had a nice Ford Racing quadrant on it. Got the heater box out because that was an AC car, which means that I got all the AC goodies off of it. And they're all on the floor here. Good brake booster, proportioning valve, inner fenders, the sway bar is buried somewhere. All of these parts I'm always complaining about that don't come on cars that I buy. And odds and ends, mass air meter, got a nice A9L computer as well. And if you see behind me is a 93 Smurf color car. It was originally black. Looks like somebody went over this thing with a roller. Again, this one is rotted as well. Frame rails are out of it, floor is out of it, really rough shape, and you just can't save them. So there you have it, guys, the benefits of part cars and a couple of the things that I've been up to since I've been back up here in Canada. We're going to get into the project soon, so stick around for that. I have brought up a whole slew of merchandise up as well with me. Obviously in better shape and condition than what I'm wearing, because this stuff is what I'm wearing while I work, so it gets dirty and messed up. But I got hoodies, I got t-shirts, I got hats. If you guys are interested in any merchandise, hit up my website, theinfamousproject.com. And thank you guys again for all your support, especially if you watch this far along. We'll see you next time.